Human saved an alien girl. Days later, a tribe of women come to him. The wind howled across the crimson dunes, carrying grains of sand like burning sparks. Daniel pulled his scarf tighter around his face, shielding his eyes from the glare of the twin suns. His shuttle had crash-landed 3 days ago on this barren alien world, and survival was already beginning to gnaw at his patience. He wasn't expecting to find anyone alive out here. Not until he heard the scream. It was faint at first, like a desperate echo carried by the storm. He turned sharply, his boots crunching against the rocky ground, and spotted movement between the jagged outcroppings. Without hesitation, Daniel rushed toward the sound. There, tangled in thorny vines that pulsed with a strange bioluminescence, was a girl. She was alien, her skin shimmering with faint iridescence, her eyes glowing a brilliant amethyst. She thrashed against the vines as if they were alive, tightening each time she fought. Daniel raised his plasma cutter and slashed the tendrils one by one. The vines hissed and recoiled, but he didn't stop until the last of them released its grip. The girl collapsed into his arms, trembling and gasping for breath. "Easy," Daniel whispered, brushing sand from her face. "You're safe now." Her gaze locked onto his, confusion and gratitude mingling in those violet eyes. "Human," she breathed, her voice melodic yet weak. He carried her back to the shelter of his crashed shuttle, giving her water and sharing the last of his nutrient rations. She didn't speak much, only watched him with cautious trust. When she finally did speak, it was to give her name. Lyra. Days passed, and Lyra regained her strength. She moved gracefully, her presence filling the broken shuttle with a strange light. She told Daniel little of herself, only that she had wandered too close to the desert's cursed roots, and the vines had taken her. But there was something unspoken in her silence, something Daniel didn't press. When she left one morning without a word, Daniel thought it was the last he'd see of her. He told himself not to care. Survival was all that mattered. Yet the memory of her eyes lingered. 3 days later, the desert answered him with something he could not have imagined. The sound of footsteps broke the stillness. Dozens of them. Daniel emerged from the shuttle, hand on his blaster, ready for trouble. What he saw made his breath catch. A procession of women advanced toward him across the sand. They were tall, their skin painted with natural hues of sapphire and gold, their garments woven from desert silks that flowed in the hot wind. Each of them carried an air of solemn strength, and all of them fixed their eyes on him. At their center walked Lyra. No longer frail, she stood tall and radiant, her iridescent skin glowing brighter beneath the suns. "Daniel," she said, her voice clear and commanding now. "You saved me. And in saving me, you have touched the fate of my people." The women bowed their heads in unison. Daniel blinked, lowering his weapon. "Your people." Lyra stepped closer, her expression both soft and fierce. "I am not just a wanderer. I am of the Elythari, keepers of this desert, a tribe of women, bound to the sands for generations. We live hidden, for outsiders have brought us nothing but ruin. But you," she paused, her eyes holding his, "you risked your life for one of us without knowing who I was. That act cannot be ignored." The women murmured in agreement, their voices like the rustle of dry leaves. Daniel shifted uneasily. "I didn't do it for a reward. Anyone would have helped." "No," Lyra said firmly. "Not anyone. Many would have walked away." That night, the Elythari women built a fire outside the shuttle, its flames flickering blue against the dunes. They sang in low, haunting tones, their voices weaving together like threads of the desert wind. Lyra sat beside Daniel, explaining their ways. Their tribe thrived without men, sustained by ancient traditions and symbiotic bonds with the land. "Then why come to me?" Daniel asked quietly. Lyra turned, her eyes shimmering in the firelight. "Because your arrival is not chance. Our seers speak of a foreigner who would bridge the broken path. The desert chose you when you found me." He felt the weight of their stares. Women who had lived their entire lives unseen, trusting no outsiders, now gathered around him with expectation. "I'm no savior," Daniel muttered. "I'm just a man trying to survive." "Sometimes," Lyra whispered, leaning closer, "survival is the very thing that reshapes destiny." The following days were unlike anything Daniel had known. The tribe showed him their hidden oasis, a place of crystal waters and lush greenery untouched by the desert's cruelty. They taught him how they wove life from barren sands, how they listened to the heartbeat of the dunes. In return, Daniel shared what knowledge he had: tools, techniques, ways to mend and build. Slowly a bond formed. But the tribe was not without enemies. On the seventh night, as the stars burned pale and cold above, the ground trembled with the march of raiders. Men from beyond the dunes, drawn by whispers of the Elythari's hidden wealth. The women stood ready, their weapons carved from bone and crystal. But Daniel stepped forward, blaster in hand. When the raiders charged, he fought beside them, human firepower alongside alien grace. The battle raged beneath the moons, and together, they drove the invaders back into the sands. When dawn broke, the tribe gathered once more around Daniel. Lyra approached him, her voice carrying the weight of both gratitude and promise. "You saved me once, Daniel. And now you have saved all of us. The Elythari no longer see you as outsider. You are bound to us, by courage, by blood, by fate." The women bowed again, their voices rising in a chant that echoed across the desert. Daniel looked at Lyra, the fire of determination in her eyes, and for the first time since his crash, he felt something stronger than survival. He felt belonging. The desert was quiet after the battle, save for the crackle of dying fires and the soft hiss of shifting sands. The raiders had fled, leaving behind broken weapons and their dead. Daniel stood among the Elythari women, sweat and dust streaking his face, his blaster still hot in his hand. Lyra approached him, her robes torn from the fight but her eyes shining brighter than ever. She placed a hand against his chest, feeling the rapid thrum of his heart. "You could have run," she said softly. "Yet you stood with us." Daniel exhaled slowly, glancing at the women gathered in a protective circle around them. "Running would have meant leaving you and them to die. I couldn't do that." The tribe began to sing, a low hum that grew into a chorus. It wasn't victory they sang of, but unity, survival, and gratitude. The sound wrapped around Daniel like a living embrace. Lyra's voice rose above the others. "By our laws, by our spirit, you are no longer an outsider. You are bound to us, brother, protector, ally, or more if you so choose." Daniel looked at her, startled, then at the women who had once viewed him with suspicion. Now their eyes were warm, filled with respect, even hope. For the first time since his crash, Daniel didn't feel lost. The desert no longer seemed endless or cruel. It was alive and he had a place in it. The tribe's chant swelled with the rising suns, carrying a promise across the crimson dunes, that fate had delivered not just a wanderer, but a new beginning.